cabinet meeting. We have Councillor McLean online watching the cabinet meeting, and Councillor Oliver in the room observing. And I'll start off with the first item, which is apologies for absence. And there's no apologies. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Okay, so turning to minutes of the previous meeting. They agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. And moving on to item 4, which is Merton of the Borough of Sport, Councillor Cooper Marvin.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just firstly say thanks to the officers for their work and for this report. And I'm pleased to present this update to Cabinet on work towards the administration's priority of Merton becoming a borough of sport. Merton has a rich and vast sporting heritage, and in recent years, the council has already done a great deal of work towards increasing participation, including the development of a playing pitch strategy, the football facility plan, and the indoor sports facility study. Increasing awareness of the opportunities to be more active is also central to the Try 22 in 22 campaign, and actively Merton sports residents to be more physically and socially active. Since the last cabinet update in July, the administration has invested in facilities, including the state-of-the-art multi-use sports area in Hayden's Road, which is now almost complete, and both Colliers Wood and Morden Recreation Grounds multi-use sports area are due to be renovated in the spring 2023. We are also working on a bid for the Football Foundation for a multi-use play zone in Lavender Park. Sorry. In Lavender Park, and have recently met Merton's St. BMX Club to discuss potential track renovation. We are also increasing a range of activities to include walking tennis for those aged 60 at the Cannons alongside the Wimbledon Guild. The Ethnic Minority Center at the Vestry Hall are supporting 30 non-swimmers with a 30-week program of swimming lessons. Looking ahead, we are working to bring park run events for adults and children at Morden Park and Mitcham Common. And not forgetting our fantastic libraries. The library offers over 450 free events and classes each month. And now with the health and well-being zones rolled out to each of our libraries. You can also loan football for free from the library. Whenever you are in Merton, you are about a mile away from the library. And it has over 1 million physical visits per year. And over 140,000 residents are library members. Therefore, the exercise classes and other services on offer in our libraries are widely accessible to many residents. But being the borough of sport means more than just this. We want sport to be part of our DNA, giving everyone aged between 4 and 16 and everyone over the age of 65 the opportunity to participate in at least one free sporting or physical activity each week. That is why we are working with London Sport to develop our blueprint for sport so that we can promote more physical activities for all, helping everyone lead healthy and active lifestyles, tackling barriers to participation from underrepresented communities, and tackling inequalities to access sport. Delivering the strategy will require a cross-council approach, working with wider public sector partners such as NHS and other, and also with residents, grassroots sporting organizations, and the voluntary and community sectors and businesses. A key task will be to identify and secure funding opportunities to bring the program to life and to secure a sustainable future for it. And this is really an exciting time as we are developing this work and on one of our key priorities. And I look forward to updating colleagues in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper-Marbury, and it's fantastic to hear the progress that you and your officers are making on this. It really is setting Merton above the rest in terms of sporting and wellbeing activities. So thank you. With the lead officer, are there any questions from cabinet colleagues? Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to thank Councillor Cooper-Marbury for her excellent reports. And as somebody who actually was part of the library at one time, it's great to hear what you're saying about what's happening and continuing development. You mentioned at some point about warm spaces. I just wonder how this is going and in terms of take-up.
Yes, we have all of our libraries are warm spaces. And the one thing we'd say is that, as I said, we have up to 450 free events in our libraries. So when residents come to the library, they're not just sitting and enjoying the warm space, but there are activities as well to keep them busy. So all of the library are warm spaces. And also all of our leisure centers have warm spaces as well. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, so we're being asked to agree recommendations A. Are they agreed? We agree. So moving to the response to scrutiny reference housing enforcement, Councillor Judge.
Thank you, Giga. There were a number of recommendations by scrutiny in February of this year. And we're working through responses to those, which are mixed with our new tenant license scheme, an additional license, and our Article 4 scheme, which is already in effect, although we're consulting upon it at the moment. The first recommendation was that we plan for an additional officer in the housing enforcement system. Now, the current model that we are looking at is for an additional 4 full-time enforcement and technical officers to help deliver the landlord licensing scheme, the additional licensing scheme, and other programs linked to it. So that is perhaps 4 times the original record. But it does demonstrate the seriousness with which we're taking. The next recommendation was in relation to the 1-year trial of the tenants champion scheme. And I have been the tenant champion since May. Based on the request for support, particularly from private sector tenants, that we have received and are receiving, it's apparent that there is a need for a tenant champion role to continue. The role currently consists of identifying and obtaining relevant information from the tenants, and then contacting the landlord or the agent seeking the remedy. And it's considered that this role needs to have a dedicated resource, and we're seeking to calibrate that resource at the present time for what would be appropriate. Possibly including an officer or a contractor resource, but also assistance with communications and with the website, so that it's very clear to use, and so that they can signpost tenants who have concerns to legal advice. We're considering whether the website should include a form for tenants to complete their concerns. And this should, or whether this should in the first instance be for an officer or a contractor to address, and then report to the council, who in turn reports regularly scrutiny to council, and considering as well whether we ought to have an annual, at least an electronic. The next recommendation is by the end of 2022 to review and update as required our housing enforcement policy. Well, this is primarily with regard to this recommendation to registered providers. So we're going to review the existing housing enforcement policy in line with the best up-to-date practice and guidance. And the current operational environment that we're, and bring the draft to cabinet for approval. We are invited to identify and report back to scrutiny options to engage the local housing sector for the purposes of Merton's House Building housing policies. As you know, Linda, you led and chaired a housing partnership meeting recently on the 3rd of November, which brought together a series of registered housing providers in the borough to discuss a region of new housing. And in the future, we intend to discuss a range of issues, including repairs, performance, retrofitting of housing, local green economy, and actions to address the cost of living crisis. So that partnership is up and running. We've also established a series of regular 6-weekly meetings with senior current officers with responsibility for local repairs to raise and discuss operations relating to reports of housing disrepair property. So that we can receive updates, so that we can challenge where we think the record is not appropriate. And I should mention as well, Leader, that you yourself have led a series of visits to housing estates in the borough to sample the residents' experience of housing association. And I think those have been very useful indeed, actually, in bringing immediately to the floor the residents' experience on different estates. Now, the next recommendation is to commission an internal and external communication strategy and various aims and objectives of that and anticipated benefits are set out. Now, as part of the council selective and additional licensing assessment, there is currently a consultation process, and that addresses the council's fund scheme, including expected standards, and involves all relevant stakeholders. And there is a communications plan and strategy being devised as part of the implementation process. So I think overall, we've taken it rather further than the original scrutiny recommendations and with speed. And we hope to be in a position in the new year to reveal more details. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Judge. And I thank you for the work around and the introduction of the Article 4 the directive immediately. I think we're already seeing what I believe the first planning application coming through for a small HMO just this week. So it's already showing the importance and impact that that decision is having. So thank you for your work on that, and officer. Lead officer, do you have anything to add?
And the only thing I would add is, following the side death of Awab Kishak, the 52-year-old boy who died of a direct result of that mold, we are reviewing and adding some action around the enforcement to meet the issues around that. We will take a part of this impact.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from cabinet members? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Judge. I was going to ask exactly the same question relating to the statement made, but the only thing I might ask, what actions will they be that you're considering to take?
This is a terrible, a tragic case, obviously, received a very high profile, right so. And I know you Leader have taken the initiative by writing to every registered provider. So the actions that we're looking at are to seek information from these registered providers on their approach to assessing the extent of damp and mold issues affecting their property, including the prevalence of these serious hazards that exist in many tenanted properties. They're categorized category 1, category 2 hazards, category 1 more serious. Their most recent assessments of their hazards and disrepair and the action they're taking to remedy any issues. So we hope to receive those reports and then consider what further action we take. Thank you.
There's no further indications, and so we're being asked to agree recommendation A, to note the report and to note that a further report will come forward in due course following the recent tragic events. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6, business plan 2023 to 2027. Councillor Christie.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So this is an updated version of the draft business plan for 23-27, and it includes new savings proposals and growth proposals for next year's budget. Colleagues will note that the business plan we approved in March this year left us with a £4.6 million gap to close in next year's budget, and that we're still currently showing a £4.3 million gap for next year. But I want to highlight that these what may seem relatively static headline figures belie the impact of the extreme financial chaos the economy and the council has been grappling with since March, and the huge amount of work that has been done to keep our budget under control. If it wasn't for the £10 million of extra inflationary costs that we've had to budget for, we would be showing a budget surplus right now. So it is thanks to our officers and to our careful financial management that we have been able to keep our budget projections at a sustainable level, and work is continuing to bring forward additional savings and income proposals in order for us to close that gap and present a balanced budget for next year in March. Clearly, we're still awaiting the details of the financial settlement from central government, which we expect to receive just before Christmas. And that will have a material impact on our business plan preparations. So a further update will be coming to Cabinet in January once we have greater clarity. But in the meantime, the savings proposal, the growth proposals and the draft capital programme that are included in this report will go to the scrutiny panels in January for their comments. And I should say we're also required to agree, it's in the recommendations, the revised council tax base for the next financial year, which you will see has increased slightly by just over 2.5%, or the equivalent of around 2,000 properties, which I would say is an indication that more people are choosing to make Merton their home, something we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Christie. Leader, does that have anything to add?
Oh, just very briefly, the officers are now pulling together the member information packs to go out to members, which will, of course, in time for the scrutiny panel. January, the meeting, the scrutiny commission, feedback, February, savings.
Are there any comments or questions from Cabinet in that regard? Okay, so we're being asked to agree recommendations 1 to 6. Do they agree?
Agreed.
Okay, back to Councillor Christie on item 7, the October financial monitoring.
Yes, thank you, Leader. This is, as you say, period 7, the October monitoring report. You'll see again that the net overspend is coming in the right direction, down to £989,000 from £1.5 million in September. So that is good news. But I say again, it is primarily due to the corporate savings and additional income that has been achieved. Still huge inflationary pressures and a change in resident behaviours since the pandemic are continuing to lead to a projected departmental overspend, which we are obviously closely monitoring. We also need to note a number of adjustments to the capital programme, largely spend being reprofiled into future years, and also school improvement works. But Leader, I'm sure you'll agree, I'm pleased to see that we're moving in the right direction and continuing our record of strong financial management. Thank you.
Councillor Christie.
Very briefly, Chair, one of the key areas that CMT management team are looking at the moment, the delivery of our saving and We have had a number of exercises on this, sessions on this. I'm hoping to report the period end next month.
Thank you. Opening up the floor to cabinet colleagues for questions or statements. Okay, so we're being asked to agree recommendations A and B. Do they agree?
Agreed.
So item 8, councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Leader. This is a very long, reading the documents. And so I'm not going to go through it all, but I'll just give you the gist of it. And hopefully there might be some questions coming to us. So, this is about London, Pan-London vehicle. Don't ask me why they call it a vehicle, because it's actually supposed to be a place of residence, but anyway, it's called a vehicle. Which will take in all 32 boroughs. I've been to the meetings online and I've seen what's happening. So I'll just give you a brief overview. This vehicle is meant to look after the needs of particularly complex needs of children, including those who are at risk of serious harm. And at the moment, we do not have anywhere that can contain these young people. So most of our young people who have needs have to be out of London. And also it costs a whole lot of money to keep them in the service. The amount of money is mentioned there, but I will say that it's about 49,680 per week to keep these children. And if we were to join this area, this Pan-London unit, we'd only be paying 20,000 a year. So that's very little compared to what we pay at the moment. Not only that, at the moment, you might want to know where it's going to be, but we don't know yet because it hasn't been totally agreed. And that's part of why we're here today. However, the amount of money that we'll save will really be phenomenal, and the children will be near to us and their parents. And so in that case, it should really be much better than putting people out in the country wherever we can find a space. The boroughs, as you probably know, we're the second smallest borough, and Kingston being the smallest one, and being the next. So therefore, we don't need as many spaces as places like Barnet. And on the meetings that I've attended, if we don't, it hasn't been worked out who is getting what yet, because we haven't come to that point. But whatever we have been given, in terms of spaces, if we don't use it, we can actually lease it out so we can get some money, which we are always looking for extra money, so we can do that, especially with children's services. So this really would personally, and I'm sure everybody else who've read this, would love to see this secure unit provided in London. I've been asked where it's going to be. As I said, I don't know yet, but it can't be over this side of the borough because most of the other boroughs are over on the other side of the river. So it will be somewhere central. So I leave you to ponder over the rest, because I'm sure you've read it. And if there are any questions, I'm quite willing to take them.
Thank you, councillor Fraser. Before I bring in colleagues yourself to lead up to plan. Thank you very much. And councillor McKay.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Brenda, for the report. I wonder whether there'd be some people who might be concerned that exporting children out of the borough might impact on them and their connections to family, friends, and their local communities.
Thank you for your question. At the moment, there's no secure children's home in London, and there is a national shortage of secure places available. That means that children from London are being sent out of London, and as far away as Scotland, that is quite a way to go. And I just add that I've been here 50 years and I haven't been to Scotland yet, so it must be quite the way in the shop. It's not 450 miles away. And so therefore, for families to go and visit, or for children to actually feel that somebody care about them, it is quite a distance. The children are being placed in temporary places, which sometimes are unregulated. And that is not acceptable. The proposal will create an additional secure accommodation right here in London that keeps children safe, provide them with support they need, and allow them to maintain important local contact and connections. And thank you very much for your time.
Councillor Joe.
Yeah, can I thank very much Brenda Fraser and the officers who work on this. The lack of dedicated secure accommodation for young children and young people is a national scandal. And it's very good to see that Merton is working with other folks to try and solve it so far as London is concerned.
Councillor Ambrose.
Yes, leading to keeping children secure. What type of role can this type of accommodation improve on outcomes for our children?
Thank you very much, Councillor Helen Bridges, for your question. Children are placed in secure homes are among the most vulnerable. Therefore, they need particular type of people, professional people to look after them because of their complex needs. So, and they often have a history of absconding. So with that, there will be health visitors, there will be nurses, all the professions have been thought about. And should this go ahead, which we're hoping it will be, all those services will be integrated. And so that they will be much better. Plus, of course, they get their education as well. And we will leave that one. So maintaining a secure home in London and maintaining a local connection will help children make pathways back into education, training and employment, and of course, connection with their family.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny.
Councillor Fraser, thank you very much for your report. Given that we're going to have very low numbers of children from Merton probably using this facility, can you be very specific about financial benefit it would be to Merton City Authority?
Well, as I've already given you the large figures that we would have been paying, we're only going to be paying 20,000 a year to keep the space. And so therefore, it will be financially viable to have these children here in London rather than being sent anywhere else. For example, the cost of the council of one secure placement is around 17,500 over a 9-week period. So that's what's the problem. The financial modeling, which is in Appendix 2, shows that on the worst case scenario, cost of the London securing children home would be about 5,500. And that per week less if we were to take that because of 20,000. That's equivalent to £50,000 savings over 9 weeks. So I think you can agree that this is a very good secure place in terms of finance, but in terms of care as well.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Okay, so we're being asked to agree recommendation. Agree. Moving on to item 9, the supply of gas to London Borough of Merton. Just before I pass over to Councillor Christie, just to say, please do not refer to content to the extent appendix at this stage. I think colleagues, this is commercially sensitive information. We will have an opportunity to discuss that if needs be under the next item. Councillor Christie.
Yes, thank you, Leader, and thank you for that reminder as well. Colleagues will remember that the council earlier this year ended its contract with Gazprom following the barbaric Russian invasion of Ukraine and send a message of solidarity with the Ukrainian people. Since then, we've been operating on a short-term energy supply contract But with this, we're now proposing to proceed to a longer term contract for gas provision. We're recommending that we move forward with the contract with bidder A for a contract term of 2 years initially, with the option to extend for two further periods of 2 years, with decisions around extension to be delegated to the executive director. I'll just add that the procurement process went through all the usual steps. The tender was accessible on the London Tenders Network, and the successful bidder scored well in its evaluation against their provision of renewable energy. So I'm pleased to be able to recommend this to colleagues.
Thank you very much. Leader, anything to add? Are there any questions or comments? In case we're being asked to agree recommendations A and B, are they agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, so we have got item 10, which is exclusion of the public to discuss this item, but as there were no questions, I'd like to move that we bring the meeting to an end. Do cabinet members agree?
Agreed.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your attendance tonight. And for those that I will see you before Christmas, so I won't miss you.